Welcome to Service Titans, the podcast where we dive deep into the inspiring journeys of Black men within the AmeriCorps community. From serving in classrooms to rebuilding neighborhoods, these are the stories of passion, purpose, and resilience. Join us as we amplify the voices of members of the AmeriCorps community and share their triumphs, challenges, and the impact they've made in their communities. Whether you're a seasoned AmeriCorps veteran or someone considering service, this is the space to explore, reflect, and be inspired. Get ready to be uplifted, empowered, and connected. This is Service Titans.
The views and opinions shared on this podcast are those of the individuals speaking and do not reflect the views of their employers, organizations, or any groups they may be affiliated with. We are here to have real, honest conversations, and that means everything shared is coming from personal perspectives, not on behalf of any company or institution. Some episodes may include discussions around sensitive topics that could be triggering or emotionally intense for some listeners. Please take care of yourself and pause if you need to.
So Joshua, what up, though? Welcome to the podcast. I always like to start by getting to know the person behind the story, what life is like for them growing up, what kind of experiences that shaped them. So Joshua, can you tell a little bit about your experience growing up in Detroit and what helped shape your foundation as a man?
I grew up, born and raised on the east side of Detroit, coming to 7 Mile, raised by two parents who are both first-generation college students, both products of single-parent households by choice, meaning that both my grandmas divorced their husbands while my parents were growing up. So they grew up in the midst of just trying to make it working class. And so they raised me in the place that they raised me kind of is a way I feel to understand their experience being on the east side of Detroit. So my mom, born in Louisiana, but raised in New Orleans. My dad, born in Mississippi, raised in Mount Clemens. My dad was very big in community involvement and also was an electrical worker. Had me passing out flyers at 5 years old. And my mom cared about education so much growing up. So I've always been about community. I've always been about caring for others per se. But largely my experience growing up early 2000s, I would say as a Black youth in Detroit, was everything was pushed towards STEM and business. I am a DPS graduate. I graduated from Bates Renaissance. Before that, I did Christian schools, Faith Christian Academy from Word of Faith, and East Bethlehem Lutheran School. Before I went to Bates and Renaissance, but I always say I love all my DPS. I have very much pride for Persian because it was in my neighborhood. And even like our block club used to donate to the old Mason Elementary Middle School before it closed down. Yeah. I would say for me, largely what grew me into my own adulthood partially would be when my dad put me into Detroit Capital League. I will say my parents always said to believe in myself, push for myself, and own myself. But I feel the first person to ever really believe in me authentically and holistically is someone named Alan Washington, currently the vice principal at Southeastern High School. And I firmly believe his support of me is what pushed me to really showcase my leadership, the leadership I already knew. And the reason why I ended up getting a leadership scholarship to go to college for free. At college, then I met someone named Anna Brown, who was over the Students of Color Mentoring, Aiding, Retaining, and Teaching program at Bowling Green State University, which was to retain Black students on campus. And what I appreciated about her was also believed in me, also believed in what I wanted to do and saying you should go for what you wanted to do. And I will always say her biggest advice for me was, you've done your job as a mentor when your mentees eclipse you. And so I always am big on putting and uplifting young people to be better than me every day. And I will always say, I would say my parents were the foundation plus my sister, but Alan Washington, which is my second dad, and Anna Brown, which is my second mama, were the people that really focused me towards my journey of who I am today.
Oh man, that's so dope, man. And also just to hear you shout out some of the East Side schools. I'm a DPS alum myself, so nothing but love for DPS and the great people who have come through DPS and will continue to come through DPS. But also as you were talking there, I heard this kind of common theme of people who have a belief in you. And I know in my life journey, there's always kind of been those moments where people may see things that I just may not see and how powerful that could be. But also this like, it seems that there's this foundation of service that has sort of been there for you, as you mentioned, as little as fire, passing out flowers with your dad. Is there a particular moment, Josh, where you say that service became something bigger than just kind of those interactions or doing things with your dad, where you kind of realize that this is kind of a part of me, this is who I am, and how I want to continue to sort of pour into others?
I would say it's been always a thing at different points in my life of helping people. I think at moments when I was in Wayne State University math course, supporting students there in their math, but also being themselves, right? But largely, we went through a lot of mess as Black students. And
Yeah.
I fought hard because I understood that there are Black students that can't speak up for themselves. And the
True.
reason why I knew that is because both of my parents were non-traditional Black students at their institution. My mama went to night school 6 years at Southern University at New Orleans and is the first person in my family, no matter both sides, to get a degree. And my dad, after he came back to school 20 years later, was a non-traditional adult, like student, right? So for me, the why I was fighting for those students who didn't have a chance to be at Black Student Union or different things like that. And as I was doing this fight, in the midst of still trying to figure out who am I? What am I trying to do? Started with math ed, then went back to math, applied math, math, and then went back to math to get the ethnic studies double major. And I'll never forget when I told my mama, I had a phone call, and I said, Ma, this math stuff ain't for me no more. I know it was my favorite subject in school, but honestly, everything I do on this campus, and even when I was back as a kid, I care about my community. I'm fighting for people. And I got a passion for diversity. I'll never forget my mama said, I know she was my mother, and she was caring. She didn't know, is diversity gonna pay the bill?
Oh, no, mama didn't tell you that.
That was one of the worst conversations I had. And that next day, Anna Brown was that. So you gotta do what's right for you. And I remember our solution was for me, because I remember I didn't want to go back to my math major because I was like, I hated the abstract math stuff. So that's the reason why I was at applied math. But I couldn't do a pure double major with applied math and ethnic studies. And she walked through my degree audit and said, if you got it in double major for math to appease mama, you're just gonna have to do it. But this is how we gonna do it to finesse for you to still do that applied math in your math abstract mess, right? And she had to make some calls to try to see if we can do stuff. But from there, she literally told me, if ethnic studies is what you want to do, Joshua, go for it. If you got double major fees, mom, do that. Her doing that gave me the confidence that at the end of my junior year, dropping that math major after I had one homework assignment, and I was just sitting there like, I don't want to do this anymore. This instructor has literally changed this math class up. I had the highest grade in that math class. But I knew he was being petty because I stopped going to the class and only came for the quizzes and the exams. And he said, the second exam, he pulls up and I pull up and he says, I just don't like how this math book is a cookbook, so I changed this exam to be more abstract. And I failed that exam. And from there, the homework was tragic. And I said to myself, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm only doing this for my mama. You know what? My degree is free. I ain't got no money on this degree. Do what the fuck to. I played a breakup song because that was my whole life. Math was my whole life. And I said, it's time for ethnic studies. And it is what it was. And from there, everything I did from that moment was, I have a duty to create a better world for people. And that's what I do. And I feel like that in that time in Bowling Green, what I went through gave me the lesson to know that, yes, you thought math was for you, but you community organizing, youth advocacy is where your head and your brain is.
As you're kind of telling this story, Joshua, is very interesting, but it's also in a lot of ways kind of mirrors what I see for a lot of particularly Black men who may want to consider this path of community advocacy as of service. That there's also this idea of how does it pay the bills? Your family, your parents pour so much into you to continue both their legacy and even to elevate things. And it, a lot of ways, in some ways, creates this invisible barrier for Black men to sort of make this commitment when we talk about service-related programs. But for in this instance, AmeriCorps. So with that, and then if we can fast forward a little bit, like where did AmeriCorps come into the story? Like how did you find AmeriCorps after going through that, what I'll say, lack of better words, of storm of identifying what's for you? How do you satisfy mom? How do you integrate what your mentor shared with you? Like what was the moment where AmeriCorps showed up and how has that played in this commitment to service? I'm sure we'll talk a lot more about that, but if you could think back to those moments, when did you learn about AmeriCorps City Year? Like when did that come around in your journey?
So actually, the first time I heard about City Year, I was sitting at Bates Academy in the assembly. Two of my classmates were as a part of the City Year Young Heroes program when that existed.
Oh, remember that. Yeah.
And so when it was there, I was like, these people doing too much. I don't know. But why? And the next time I see them red jackets, I'm at career fairs because I was one of those people that went to career fairs from minute one. And shout out to Jeff Jackson, who was the director of the Career Center, who didn't play no games on Black students on BGSU's campus pulling up to the career.
Don't get you right. Get you right.
So I'm there, and I never forget, it was a City Year recruiter from City Year Cleveland said, you gonna be in one of these red jackets one day. And I said, I don't know about that. But then I see an image of somebody who was at Bowling Green State University before with me and went to City Year. I see him like, I see that man's face. I'm like, great. On there. What? Yeah. And I'm sitting there. I'm like, okay, it's whatever. I still don't want to do this mess. But over time, I'm like, okay, Josh, you got to find your next destination. After this, you don't know. You still care about math education somewhat. You care about your Black youth, and you care about community. You don't know where you're going. You want to be this activist. However, you got to find somewhere to be. So I'm like, you know what? Let me just apply to be with these red jackets. Merge my care for like community and Black youth with my care for math education. Let's go to City Year. And I was told by one of my instructors, like, I think this would be good for you because I know somebody who came from BG, went to City Year, actually ended up getting a staff role and moving forward through that way. Yeah, because for those who was in the School of Cultural Critical Studies, which included my major ethnic studies, one of our classes was about like nonprofit work and getting yourself in an internship and an assistantship and whatnot, right? Pretty much that's what happened was like, yeah, this is my option and we're going to use it to go further. And that's how I got there. Again, I will say there was pushback from family because at that time, we know City Year stipend was very low. And when I served, realizing it was $5 an hour after taxes, my family placed worth on money. And so I'll never forget being accepted for City Year and still being telling like my grad advisor for the Students of Color Mentor Aid and Retain and Teaching program, the SMART program. Yeah, I'm in my one-on-one with her and I'm like, yeah, I got City Year, but I still got to keep looking. And she asked me point blank and period, do you want to keep looking or your people want you to keep looking? And I said, I mean, I got to keep looking. I got to push for more money. And she's like, Joshua, you have something. Do you want to stretch your out? So you keep on saying you don't know where to go to search for things. You have something. Just do it. What's sold you? Well, my people is telling me, yeah. And she's like, do what you want yourself to do. And I said, okay. And I'll never forget. When I came home, visited my sister, and she was like, so yeah, you apply for other things? And I said, no, I think I'm just going to go with this. And it is what it is, I guess, because I got to do for me. And then she says, no, Josh, you need my money, blah, blah, blah. I was just like, you know, I just want to end this conversation. I leave. And as I'm leaving, she's like, you just don't want to listen to nobody, blah, 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 blah. And I'm just like, and don't get me wrong, I love my sister. I do. I love my sister through and through. literally is a go-getter and everything, but it's like I'm on my different path, right?
We all got a different path. Yeah.
And she even calls my parents before I get to my parents' house. And me and my parents have a conversation about what happened and how I was irritated. And even my parents was like, well, Joshua, she is right. You need more money, blah, blah, blah. And so I still go with City Year because I'm like, this is all I know. And I'm thinking about the possibility of getting a staff role in the future and using that as my way to get somewhere in community work.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I can't say enough like how much that sort of mirrors experiences I've heard in a lot of ways, my experience. Like I know both serving as an AmeriCorps member, I have family members like Anton, what are you doing? Even to the point where Detroit Lions Academy over on the east side was my service school where I would have guys from my hood, like some of my friends come up there and tell me like, man, you need to leave this alone. So it's the pressures that come outside of the pressure that is internally when you talk about the dynamics that show up in the AmeriCorps space. And what I think is a good way to pivot into a little bit of my next question. And I think, Josh, we talked a little bit about this offline. The need for more representation, particularly in the AmeriCorps programs, when we talk about having Black men in these spaces and the value that we bring, not only to the service, but just the perspectives that we bring to this space. Can you talk a little bit about that experience for you, being a part of AmeriCorps, whether as a member of staff? What are your thoughts about the level of representation that we see in many of our AmeriCorps programs, those who are helping to really like drive this work?
I do feel that I am glad that over time our racial makeup has shifted. During my time, as someone who is a product of the system, and even though I went to the choice schools in the system, yes, I still saw my trauma being thrown back at me as a core member. And the times that adults talk to kids any kind of way or try to talk to us as core members, and then I had to say, hold on, grown adult here, got a degree. Wait a minute. Oh, you not one of the kids. Oh, why now you are rephrasing how you're talking about these kids, right? And for me, representation is important because understanding, like, for instance, a lot of our core, it comes from Detroit schools now. And I just feel it's important that we need to have conversations before they get to service to say, hey, what happened to you in your schooling that you are afraid to see when you come back in here? Because that is a thing. And it's a thing that happens constantly where you're like, you will see a moment and you will literally put yourself back into that time. Like, oh my God, I remember when the staff member said this to me, even though literally I was just walking to this direction. I didn't mean no harm. All you had to do was just tell me, hey, can you please not do this? Not yell at me and say, what you supposed to be on? Where you supposed to be at?
And that trauma that's associated with that. Yeah. Yeah.
And so, like, I can get it where, like, some core members have this feeling, look, I got to go in there to protect my kids, and knowing that you are a guest in that building. And so you need to have, like, a locus of control. And, like, for some of them, since they're younger, it's like the situation of they don't have the tact yet in order to, like, have a constructive conversation. Like, in my past, when I was a core member, there was a situation where I'm talking to my partner teacher and the staff member comes into the room and she interrupts our conversation. I say, good morning. Hey, how are you doing? And she says, oh, no, I ain't come to speak to you. I came to speak to your partner teacher. I looked around. I don't know if she ain't talking to me. But then I had it with text and I said, no, I just really want to know, how are you doing today? And if you are all right. Oh, I'm doing fine. How are you? I'm doing good. All right, you want to speak to my partner teacher? Okay. Like, and you knew from there, there's a way to talk to me. I don't believe in that. My parents always instilled in me, respect your elders, but if somebody disrespects you, you come get me. And if they don't come get you, you don't have the time to come get me, literally try your best to address the situation in the most respectful way possible. Don't let nobody disrespect you.
You're sort of talking, and just thinking about just the experiences that we all have as students and how that shows up in different ways. And I never thought of it that way, Josh, to be honest. Like the role that AmeriCorps members play in a variety of different aspects of social issues, but particularly in the education space, how much of our previous interactions with adults and some of the trauma associated with that, how it positions AmeriCorps members and how they respond in some ways around that, which is like extremely poignant point. And I think I'm going to continue to like think through that a little bit and like my own experience. And as even as a parent, like as I kind of watch my children continue to kind of go on their educational path. But Joshua, as we're talking here, I think a very consistent theme is both through your experience are the barriers in which in some ways tried to prevent you along your pathway. Some of them through family dynamics, some of them through you just kind of learning what was your direction. And I'm sure there were some external forces impacting you as you kind of made this commitment to service and mission driven work. I ask, like, what advice would you give other young people, but particularly young Black men who are considering careers in service or in AmeriCorps term in itself? And feel free, share the good, the bad, the ugly. Like, what advice would you give to other young men, or just those who are transitioning their career who may have an opportunity to hear this podcast?
Take advantage of every opportunity because you may never know where it leads you to your next destination, and always believe in yourself and your dreams. And the reason why I say this is largely I was a young person that kept on saying, I don't know what I want to do until, I finally got the answer. And then it reshaped and it kept reshaping until 2024 when I finally got my answer for real. And realizing that I know I am that community organizer and youth advocate, right? And realizing that everything that I do, no matter the job, comes in that lens. And so when I talk to young people, whether it's at career fairs, whether even outside my job, and I say, what do you want to do when you grow up? And when they say, I don't know, and I'm like, what do you like to do? For instance, today, this one person at the table I was recruiting at, literally after I did my recruiting pitch, I just asked like what they want to do. Boom. And she says, oh, I don't know. And I said, what do you like to do? Well, I kind of draw. I said, you kind of draw. Her peers was right next to her. I said, do she kind of draw or she draw for real? And they was like, she draw for real. She like literally needs to just appreciate it. And I asked her, I said, why? Well, I need to get money. I said, this shelter is art. The logo you see right here is art. The tattoo you see on this person is art.
Go on and on.
Everything you see around you, the fashion that your boy is wearing is art. And I have to say this often. I tell young people all the time, especially when they like, I don't think I should major in music because I don't think I can get money. You're going to get some money and a job regardless with a bachelor's degree. It's going to happen because they look, oh, you got a bachelor's degree. Might as well do something. Okay, we can take them. Like, in general, that is what I'm pushing for now. And it's funny when I challenge other mentors around me now in some spaces when they try to say it, and I literally shoot my hand up real quick. I'll be like, no, we're not doing that today. For instance, like anytime somebody says TikTok star and the class laughs and the teacher's like, why would you say that? I said, no.
Don't press that dream. Don't do it.
Think about social media marketing classes so that you can add to your TikTok. Boom. Because in general, if I would have had people around me in that energy from 2018 to, I would say, and I still was dealing with the mess a little bit till 2022, let's be real here. People, even when I got to my community organizing roles, people basically doubting me instead of, if people uplifting me better than doubting me, who knows where I'd be at right now compared to what? And I say this, I say I had the unconventional career journey that I need to have in order to create that lesson to people and let them know, like, go for what you truly want to go for. And that's why I tell people, if you gonna go to college, fight your hardest to make sure that your parents ain't funding it, because I've seen it where literally folks think about changing majors and their parents pull funding.
Yeah. And when you talk about what I would say sort of your board per se, those people who love to help you along the way. There's going to be some turbulence there, but I also recognize like you have to make sure like you are clear on your vision and don't let people dim your light is like what I'm hearing there, Josh. And we need people like you when you see that happen who are comfortable saying no, like let that light shine. And I think that definitely gives us a chance to pivot into what I think is like my most favorite part of these conversations, Joshua, is an opportunity to shine a light on a service titan who has inspired or had a big impact on our lives, or whether that's a big or a small impact. And I know for me growing up, there's been countless people who have seen things in me that maybe I didn't see or gave me that pat on the back at the right time when I needed it, when I thought my light may have been dimming a little bit. So I want to ask you this, Joshua. What's a service titan in your life that you would like to highlight and sort of give them their flowers for how they've continued to be an advocate for you and help for your light to continue to shine? I want to give you an opportunity to highlight a service titan.
I'm gonna recommunicate Allen Washington and Anna Brown. And I'm on the, I ain't gonna lie, the tear might fall. I wouldn't be where I'm at today without them two.
Mm.
Point blank, end the period. And I give my respect to my parents, but them two believed in me in ways in which other people didn't. Especially in school, all the time, I wasn't allowed to be in any leadership roles. People didn't believe in me. Even as I talk about how I'm very much love Black history to the core, Bates had this thing called base battle, right? And I was never picked for the team. And one year I was the alternate, and I almost got on that stage. People felt like I couldn't do it. And I'm sitting up here every day when they was doing the quiz for like to get base bucks for the general school. I got it right every single time. And the only reason why I got base bucks once was because my sister, when she was on the leadership team, found my thing and got my name, right? And often I've been downplayed my whole entire life. And that man saw something in me where literally was like, and I showed up my first day in Capital League, and my dad was shocked when I got up there and said who I was. And I said, Joshua Moore, 9th grade, Renaissance High School, happy to be here today. And I shocked the whole room. And my dad was even, because he put me in there because he thought I needed it. And honestly, I realized I needed it for the reason I needed it was for my leadership to be pushed forward rather than him thinking I needed it because I need to have more confidence. I had the confidence already. I just needed the space to showcase the leadership. And with Anna Brown, when times at Bowling Green State University, when I was doing what I was doing, and I was receiving pushback from some of my peers because me being one generation from away from the civil rights movement, understanding it takes a multitude of ways to create change, and basically being pushed back on like, well, we don't need to be doing this just because A, B, and C. And I'm like, you don't know that literally I know some of the things also because you're being told by some people about what's going on, but I'm also being told by some people what's going on. But I'm not about to be conceited about it, right? And it's a situation where both of them to this day, whenever I need to call them about something I'm going through, they answer and they talk me through it and let me know. And they shape my way of how I operate with my young people. I always say, you can't tough love every young person. And as somebody who was tough loved, I know I can survive in it, but I can't thrive in it. And so I operate, a lot of times people say this to me. One of my mentees, who's like my little brother, and we talk like every day, says this to me often. You are the person you wish you had grown up. And largely it's because of them too, because they believed in meeting young people where they're at, but scaffolding them to high ideals. And meeting young people where they're at means like, if that young person has to have that tough love, give it to them if it need be at times when it needs to be done. If that young person needs that middle line, like, hey, what you doing over here? But at the same time, I understand what you did. I ain't gonna lie. Boom. Yeah. And then if that's that young person, or all you gotta say is, hey, I just didn't need you to do that. And they be like, okay, cool, that's it, right?
Just repositioning.
Yeah, and it's so I do it from a restorative justice practice because those two people were there for me in ways. Whenever I used to say, "Hey, I'm trying to do this," and they would be like, "Huh, why are you doing it?" Now, you do know this will be the outcome. It might be the outcome if this happens, but I still want to help you through this if you do decide to do this. Okay, cool, cool, cool. And so for me, it's just like, and I'm learning that I can't use my device of what I want to do to go against trauma. For instance, you have parents who have basically been through tough love their whole time, so they give kids all the leisure, right? Or
Mhm.
you have parents who went through all the leisure, so they give all the kids all the structure they wish they had. I'm at this situation where I hate when I have to tough love, but I know that for some kids, they need that structure. And I
Yeah.
can't take what happened from my own trauma and make it about me and say, hey, I'm not going to do this on every kid because I didn't like that. So these kids shouldn't have that. But no, some kids, they need that structure. So I have to bring out Sergeant Joshua sometimes yeah, after I do it, I'm like, I apologize. How do you feel right now? What's going on? How you feeling? Are you feeling, are you mad at me? What's going on? Are you okay? And like, there was moments and when I was at Bowling Green State University in my student affairs program, and I was in my assistantship in Office of Multicultural Affairs, where I had to go Sergeant Joshua on some of my students. But after I did Sergeant Joshua, I still did a restorative justice conversation after and said, okay, how we feeling? What's going on? Because that student, one student in particular, basically said, hey, when I cussed him out, he's the only student I cussed out. He said, I'm glad you did that because I was waiting on one of y'all to cuss me out. I needed that. A lot of y'all need towing and being nice. You feel me? And that is the moment that it reaffirmed that it's like, Josh, I know you don't like doing it sometimes, but in this moment, they said he needed it. So
Sometimes you got to kind of bring that out. So, well, as you're kind of one, I want to start by saying shout out to the service type that you highlighted and the role that they've played in your life. And I'm sure there's probably countless other young people who could say the same. And it's nothing like having people who are willing to like champion and support you and just ride for you because they see the potential in you. Also, it kind of took me back a little bit there, Joshua, with the Bates books. I think we talked offline about very early in my education going to Bates, and it's hard to believe that those Bates books are still circulating and going around. Then also, I read something recently about we all need a little bit of an alter ego. So thanks for introducing me to Sergeant Joshua a little bit in this conversation. So what I want to do this before we wrap things up is I know that we're all working on a multitude of things, both in our day to day or our 9 to 5s, but also I know so many of us are creative and developing some tremendous things outside of our work. So I want to give you the space, Joshua, to highlight anything that you're working on, or perhaps your social media handles, any projects, as I stated, you're currently working on. I want to make sure that I give you the floor for people to kind of tap into the things that are important to you.
one thing that I am creating, it's been on pause for right now because I'm in the midst of a job search and a lot of my opinions can be very radical. Um, there was there was a page I created, I think around March in the midst of Women's History Month, I believe. One day I woke up. I know the mental health it takes to create a business. I see both of my sisters and what they deal with their businesses, and I just know that they're very strong. And I just know when my mental health happens, because being vulnerable, I do have bipolar disorder. So if a depressive episode happens, that business will falter. And so I said, but you can always do a nonprofit and start very much too much stock to it. And I said, you always start things, keep it simple, stupid. And so one day I just woke up and I said, I'm gonna create this page. And it's called NRDM Organization. And I think at NRDM org is the tag, I believe. Right now it's on private because of job search. But and I haven't been using it as much because I've been talking my mess on my own page, which I'm not giving. But in that situation, it's named after my two grandmas. NR represents my granny, Nathan Reed, my dad's mom. DM represents my grandmother, her nickname Dollar May. And so I would say my granny in the 60s and then my grandmother in the 70s both decided, you know what? I know the prize in the Black community is a 2-parent household, but this household is not healthy. I'm about to go on my own. And they still produce, each of them produced 2 first-generation college students. Each of them produced children that all were able to create their own lane, even if they didn't go to college or not. And my granny was a feisty lady. She didn't play no games. If she didn't like you, she didn't like you. If she didn't like you, she said, yeah. But my grandmother, that was my joy. Trying not to hold back a tear on that one, because it's about to be 5 years since we lost her on my mom's birthday.
Oh, man.
When my mom was going through breast cancer, and I remember it was when I was in middle school, and I wasn't going to talk about this part, but I remember my grandmother coming up to help us and like help the household, because my dad was the only person working.
Yeah.
And I always forget, I used to go through what I went through at school and then come home, still deal with mess. And she used to always say, talk to me, Josh. She used to tell me, and I used to say what I had to say about what I'm feeling, what's going on. She said, it's going to be all right. You got this, Josh. Every day, if I feel some type of way about something, if I'm going through something, what pops into my head is Josh. Every time.
Oh, man.
It's so them two. That's the reason why I named the org after them, because they put a belief. My granny put a belief in community. Like when she died, a lot of the neighborhood kids in Mount Clemens talked about like how she was a second mother to them, and I was like, dang, she's a feisty lady, but and I could tell she instilled that community in my dad. My grandmother always instilled that nurturing that I think got instilled in my mom, which was a piece of that education piece that my mom cared about. And so I always, in the tag of the business, if you need anything education, whether it be math tutoring, social studies tutoring, college and career development, or scholarship support, because I went to school for free, so I want other kids to go to school for free. Or you need anything community, whether that be voter engagement, political engagement, civic engagement, or just community volunteering, hit us up in our DM. I forgot to mention, low key, the biggest thing I want to say is, if somebody wants some math and social studies tutoring, hit me up in our DM, because what I really want in the focus for that is anything that I charge, and it will be equitable model, meaning if it's somebody who ain't got as much, maybe $5 an hour. If there's somebody who got the buku money, it may be 20. But that money will all 100% go to hopefully scholarships for programs that I've been impacted by, or ones that I truly believe are so exceptional in the city of Detroit or nationally.
Joshua, thanks for caring about NRDM, your vision. I think it all starts with vision, and the small steps that we take lead to bigger steps, but also just the vulnerability sharing there about both the family experience, what your grandmother has meant to you. And I'm sure it's going to be successful because of the legacy and foundation that is sort of rooted in. So listeners, I hope that we all take an opportunity to sort of tap in as Joshua continues to build out the nonprofit work. We'll be sure to put in the show notes how to connect with Joshua, whether a LinkedIn page or other mediums in which you can kind of tap into both the mission, the passion, the work behind this endeavor. Joshua, I want to say truly thank you for taking the time to join the podcast, for sharing your insights, your experiences. Listeners, again, be sure to connect with Joshua on the platforms that we'll highlight in the show notes. And with that, until next time, keep the conversation flowing, keep service front and center, and continue shining bright in your communities. This is Service Titans. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for joining us as we explored the inspiring journeys of Black men in AmeriCorps. Keep the conversation going by connecting with us on social media. Until next time, stay committed, stay courageous, and keep striving to make a difference. This is Service Titans, where every story told is a testament to the power of service. Thank you for listening.